The Kalonzo SIFUNA ticket with Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna as the presidential candidate and Kalonzo Musyoka as his running mate is increasingly being floated within opposition circles as perhaps the most formidable formation capable of denying President William Ruto a second term in next year's general election. Political analysts have likened the possible pairing to the historic Obama-Biden ticket of the 2008 United States presidential election, a partnership that successfully fused youthful charisma with establishment experience before sweeping to victory by more than 10 million popular votes and a commanding 192 electoral vote margin, ultimately ushering Barack Obama into history as America's first black president. NTV's David Mudoka with that analysis.
With less than 2 years to the next general election, the country's political landscape is increasingly crystallizing into what appears to be a two-horse presidential contest.
Wale majamaa wanajaribu kushindana na sisi.
On one end stands President William Ruto's broad-based political formation, buttressed by the machinery of incumbency.
Matusi mingi.
On the other is an opposition coalition still undergoing consolidation and yet to formally settle on both its presidential flag bearer and running mate. At the heart of the opposition matrix are seasoned politicians, including former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, and former Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i. But increasingly, attention is also shifting toward the so-called Linda Mwananchi faction, a youthful combative political wing associated with Edwin Sifuna, Babu Owino and James Orengo, particularly following Sifuna's recent remarks during an interview on Inoro FM.
Itakuwa jambo la kuvunja moyo sana ati tuamke 2027 William Ruto amepita na kura 1200 kwa sababu Sifuna alimea pembe akasema yeye pia ako kwa debe, Kalonzo akasema ako kwa debe, DCP wakatoa candidate. Iwapo mtampa William Ruto hiyo nafasi ya kurudi, tutakuwa tumewakosea Wakenya kwa sababu Wakenya kwa kweli wanaumia na Wakenya wametuambia wanataka nchi tofauti.
At the same time, signals emerging from Gachagua's camp appear to suggest the possibility of a coalition between the former deputy president's allies and the Linda Mwananchi movement as the opposition moves toward crafting a united anti-Ruto front.
Edwin Sifuna, I want to tell you, my brother, you are a good leader. Ukifukuzwa na William Ruto, you are welcome to DCP. William Ruto amesema hata huyu Babu Owino akinunua ODM akwe. Babu Owino ukifukuzwa na William Ruto, this is your home.
And with the prospect of a grand opposition coalition increasingly appearing inevitable, political debate is now shifting toward a more consequential question: who among the opposition principals carries the strongest electoral currency to lead the ticket that will challenge President Ruto's re-election bid?
The united opposition will produce one of the people who will be on the ticket. Then you have the Linda Mwananchi also producing somebody else to team up with the person the other side would have proposed.
For now, Kalonzo Musyoka remains the establishment face of the united opposition, while Edwin Sifuna increasingly appears to embody the momentum, defiance and youthful energy associated with the Linda Mwananchi movement. Should the two camps eventually coalesce around the pair, then the debate may no longer be whether they can work together, but rather in what order the ticket would maximize its political appeal: Kalonzo Sifuna or Sifuna Kalonzo.
Many people have been thinking Kalonzo would be a nice compromise candidate, but you see Sifuna again is coming very strongly. Many of the people who want to see this country change see that being delivered by Sifuna. So perhaps they'll be very disappointed if you tell them to back a legacy politician like Kalonzo.
Create some energy, create some vibe, because people are not feeling him, you know. Otherwise, if he is not very careful, he will be forced to do an Obama-Biden thing. where Sifuna becomes a candidate and him is forced to be the running mate.
When Barack Obama, America's 44th president and first black president, entered the White House in 2008 alongside Joe Biden, Obama was 47 years old while Biden was 65. By the time Kenyans head to the ballot next year, Sifuna will be 45 while Kalonzo will be 73. And just as Obama had served only one Senate term before ascending to the presidency, Sifuna too will be heading into the election after a single term as Nairobi Senator. Likewise, much like Biden at the time, Kalonzo brings decades of political experience, having previously mounted unsuccessful presidential bids of his own. To proponents of such a formation, the comparison is therefore less about direct equivalence and more about political chemistry, the attempt to merge generational excitement with institutional experience, youthful mobilization with establishment credibility, and resistance politics with a nationally recognizable political figure. It is a formula they believe could potentially reconfigure the opposition landscape and mount the most serious challenge yet to President Ruto's hold on power.
2027 is a different ballgame. You can't compare 2027 to anything else. This is going to be the most complicated and complex election we have had as a people. Because you see, even the absence of Raila alone complicates the matrix.
And while none of the key opposition figures has openly declared interest in a joint ticket, recent public statements from Sifuna, Gachagua, and Kalonzo appear to suggest a growing acknowledgement that only a united front may stand a realistic chance against President Ruto.
We are trying to build a broad consensus going forward. And so when the time comes, we will address that issue.
And with 16 months left, the race to State House has the signs of being one of the toughest political tests yet in the country's history. David Muthoka, NTV, Nairobi.